And now for our feature presentation.
You're listening to the JB and Goldwater Show. Live, loud, and online. Hosts, Jamie Bradford and Darren Goldwater.
All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, 12:02 p.m., July the 9th. It is sunny for the most part in the low country of South Carolina. Finally, it's been a rainy week, but maybe some of that sunshine will peek through today and give us an opportunity to get outside and do whatever we want to do. What we want to do today is try to squeeze everything into our program. It is jam-packed for the next couple of hours. Darren Goldwater, Jamie Bradford, if you're listening on the Podbean app, we thank you for doing that. If you're watching, we appreciate that as well. If you listen and would like to watch, then just go to our Twitter page at JB and Goldwater. Go to Facebook, JB and Goldwater. Go to YouTube, JB and Goldwater, jbandgoldwatershow.com. You can find all of that there. It's your central hub. Go there, click on your icon of preference to be able to watch or listen to our program, and we certainly appreciate that. I am at Sports Radio JB on Twitter. If you'd like to send us a tweet or something, he is at Darren Goldwater, and of course, as I mentioned, at JB and Goldwater on Twitter. Darren, we got a lot to get to. We're going to do everything we can to squeeze all this in today. I hope we get to it. There's a lot of stuff. Pretty much hour one is all football. We have baseball and golf in hour two, and we'll mix in some football there. So we've got David Cloninger at 12:30. We have Corey McCartney at 1 o'clock, and we have Scott Glaze at 1:30. Scott, of course, the pro out at Stono Ferry. Some major news on Tiger Woods. We'll talk about Bryson DeChambeau. We'll talk about the golf tournament that is teed off today, which is where the golf tournament is going to tee off next week in Dublin, Ohio, the home of the Memorial. So that's all with Scotty. Corey's going to fill us in on some baseball news and notes. Obviously, we're going to talk about some major developments with the Braves over the last few days and a whole lot more in that segment at 1 o'clock, and then coming up here in about 25 minutes, DC. Ray Tanner, yesterday on 107.5 The Game, did give some information that is very pertinent to fall and, of course, football. So we're going to talk to DC about that and maybe some other options if they're not able to play a 12-game schedule, things of that nature. We'll ask him as well about King Dixon, just as we did yesterday with J.C. Sherbert. And David Cloninger, a few days ago, put an article was in the paper. It was actually, I think, on the 4th of July is when it landed. And I haven't actually talked about this week, but it is an article about my old roommate, who's actually been on the show, Jay Brown.
Yeah, I saw that.
Who pitched at South Carolina, in a relationship that he had with a family in Omaha, Nebraska, when the Gamecocks won the World Series. And this is Jay. First of all, Jay is one of the, if not the, best human on earth. I mean, honestly. He just doesn't. We always made fun of him because he does everything well. Like, he can dunk, he can throw the football 60 yards, he could throw 95. I mean, he can play golf. I mean, he's a scratch golfer. I mean, he's just everything
That's
in the
not
world when
fair.
it comes to sports, and he's also the nicest human in the world. But anyways, we'll talk about this today and fill you in on exactly what I'm talking about right now. But we will lead off today with a lot of football. The Ivy League decision came down yesterday that they didn't postpone. They canceled fall sports. It's over. They're not going to play it in the spring. It's done.
Well, that's not totally confirmed. They've left it open that it's possible.
Yeah.
But the wording is ominous because they could have easily said we're postponing and then later canceled. But they said canceled, and then there were plenty of reports afterwards that said they will allow themselves the opportunity to reevaluate as they work forward. So there is a sliver of hope that it could get played in the Ivies in the spring.
Well, we know it won't be played in the fall.
We do know that.
Per Heather Dinich's column on ESPN, this decision was made based on the policies of the 8 schools in the Ivy League. I read this column twice to make sure that I didn't miss anything here. The Ivy League statements are that there are policies on their campuses that do not accommodate athletics this fall. So, translation in my mind is, okay, we kind of knew that this could happen. That doesn't mean anything for other campuses and other leagues. It doesn't mean anything. Are there people that are following this? Sure. Are there other campuses and other conferences, more specifically, I think probably at the FCS level, that maybe have similar policies? There might be. Probably will be in the future. Are there right now? Is everybody under the same umbrella? Absolutely not. So this decision, it might have an impact. It might not. Right now it doesn't on the rest of college football. And you know, they made the decision that they thought was best for them. Real quick too, as we came on the air, we also learned that the Atlantic Coast Conference, their fall Olympic sports have been delayed until September 1. Olympic sports. If folks don't understand, Olympic sports in particular here, men's and women's cross country, field hockey, men's and women's soccer, and volleyball actually start before September. So they're just backing those up about a week. It does not impact football or anything of that nature, Darren. So your take yesterday, I mean, we were expecting what we got, that they wouldn't play in the fall. I was actually expecting them to announce a spring season.
I think everybody was, because all of the rumors coming out and all of the articles about I talked with X amount of Ivy League coaches and here's what they're expecting, all of it was we're expecting that there will be an announcement saying fall sports, if not just football, will be played in the spring. So when it hit yesterday afternoon and the wording was canceled, that took everybody by surprise. And then some of the good reporters out there like Nicole Auerbach digging deeper, Dana O'Neill, Pat Forty, and they were the ones who then uncovered, look, they did cancel, but there is a chance that they can still play in the spring. They will revisit this. But the issues that you pointed out, the Ivy League rules and restrictions, basically. I mean, some of these campuses say you can't have gatherings of more than 25 people. Some are having travel restrictions. Some are having meal restrictions. So it's really just not possible.
Yep, that's right. And the Ivy League is clearly, certainly, everybody might say they are, but the Ivy League is, no doubt about it, academics first. So the policies that are on their campus translate to their athletics venues and their athletics departments and pretty much everything else that is involved in these schools. And then that's how they landed on this decision. There were conference commissioners and others who were questioned about this decision. I'm picking out Bob Bowlesby here, Big 12 commissioner, who said, quote, "We haven't been told by public health officials or our local doctors or our scientific consultants that we should stop doing what we're doing. My feeling is you just keep putting one foot in front of the other until you're advised that it's a bad idea. When we get that advice, obviously the safety, health, and well-being of our student athletes and staff is first. When we're told this just isn't going to work out, obviously nobody's going to be resisting that, but they haven't said that to us yet. end quote. That is from Bob Bowlesby yesterday, which is pretty much on par with every major league in the country right now. Now, saying that translates to this. Brett McMurphy released a poll this morning that almost 75% of FBS athletics directors believe college football will be delayed. So this poll was actually done in April and then redone over the last week and a half, essentially.
Yeah.
So this poll reads, what is most likely – do you have the poll up?
I do.
Okay.
Sure do.
So you can see it. What is most likely for college football? Percentage of ADs who believe the season starts as scheduled, only 27%. But that is up 3% from April. What is most likely for college football? Percentage of Power 5 ADs that believe Power 5 ADs, not FBS, Power 5 ADs that believe the season starts as scheduled, 22%. That's down. And then a percentage of non-Power 5 ADs, 31%. That's up, which is interesting.
Yes.
But a couple of the major takeaways here, from 3% jumping to 11% of Power 5 ADs saying that they think there will be no college football, period, at the end. And then 45% of Power 5 ADs believe that they will only play conference games. Now, what that doesn't say is that the conference schedule would only be 8 or 9 games. It just says only conference games. So one of the questions I'm going to ask TC today is, if they only play conference games, are there folks looking at this saying, well, let's add a couple conference games if we cancel some non-cons?
Well, part of the poll does say, are you going to play a 12-game schedule? And the optimism there is between 8 and 11%. So I heard yesterday from one FCS school that the word going around the FCS landscape right now is that it will be only conference games. And because of that, the season is understandably shortened. So it would then look like an 8 or 9 game season. So that's at least some of the thought right now, yesterday, not even now, yesterday, in some of the FCS circles.
Right.
I don't expect a 12-game schedule. I don't think that's reasonable to expect at any level, including the Power 5 right now, because there will be enough of some schools either delaying or conferences delaying or canceling or pushing to the fall or the spring that makes it impossible to actually play 12 games.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and you're right. I mean, you're right about that. There's going to be, again, everybody has a little bit of a different scenario here. So, this might end up being something where the Power 5 kind of gets together and says, look, we've got the resources to do it. Here's how we're going to do it.
Maybe.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if we're looking for ways to safely accommodate, and over the next couple of weeks we continue, because look, I know that Ohio State, North Carolina, they've now paused workouts and things like that, but honestly, if you really think about it, there's only a handful of schools that have done that. So it's not an overwhelming majority or anything like that.
No, but it's
but
it's enough that it's eye-catching.
Well, you're right. You're right. It is. I mean, you have to pay attention to it. I'm not saying don't pay attention to it, but it's not like we've got 60 teams out there that have paused workouts. So we're not in a everything's dead type of scenario here. We're in a, okay, we still have to figure this out. Now the timeline is shrinking, but we still have time to figure some things out. How do we figure this out? And there's a lot of stuff flying around out there. Some of it you should read, some of it you certainly shouldn't. Ray Tanner, who we're going to talk to David with about in about 15 minutes or so, very optimistic yesterday on 107. Very optimistic. Their COVID numbers at South Carolina are really good, he says. I'm quoting him, really good. As opposed to what we heard about Clemson's, which weren't that good, but obviously by now, unless they've had another surge, most of them have more than likely recovered. So
what's interesting is Clemson hasn't put out numbers since.
No,
so we don't know exactly what's going on at Clemson. But once they got into the 30s, suddenly they haven't released anything.
Right? Yeah. No, we haven't seen anything. I would think they'll probably have something else. They're going to have to follow up on that.
You would think. I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, well, we haven't heard anything out of them since there was this 30 some odd back-to-back weeks of like there's something flaring up here. Mm-hmm. They've been quiet.
And again, we might have a scenario, and we've all said all this stuff, Darren, you've said it multiple times. We might have a scenario where they say, okay, here's the plan for the season, and then we, get a couple weeks in, and it squashes itself. One of the things that I'm a little, unsure of here is how people, like, if – okay, there's some models out there, right, that if we play like an 8-game conference schedule or something, we'll play it in October and November.
Okay. Well,
why is that any better than today or tomorrow? You know what I mean? Why is that better than December and January? Why is that better than September and October? Like, is there real scientific evidence that says out there, the virus ain't going to be here those 2 months?
No, but there is, common sense says you buy yourself some time and you buy the medical experts some time to – like we were talking about yesterday, really nail down the testing science part of it, nail down the time frame of the testing, make sure that the tests are as accurate as possible, and are coming back as fast as possible, like the 3 to 24 hour mark.
Okay.
I
can buy that.
Buy yourself some time. Like the ACC, by doing what they did today, pushing fall sports back until at least September 1, the Olympic only fall sports. One of the athletic directors was quoted as saying, it buys us some time. That's what we're looking for. Just buy us some time. Let's find time breeds information. Time allows good brains to think a little bit more. Mm-hmm. That's what you're looking for. And I mean, I think the odds of starting on time are incredibly low. And I like the optimism from some. But I think it's very clear that the pessimism is overriding the optimism now.
Well, you're right, and some of it is justified. Some of it isn't, because there's some people out there that it's like they don't want college football. It's like they're doing everything they can to tell you it's not going to happen. I'm like, dude, you realize your job depends on this, right?
So
shut up.
But see, I feel like I could be lumped in with that group.
No, that's not true, because you always look at another angle if someone presents it to you.
Yeah.
You're always fair about it. You might think differently than some people about some things, as we all do.
Right.
But you're never not willing to listen or look at it. And some of these folks that I don't even look at their stuff anymore. I'm like, do you really just come out and say it? I don't want to see football.
See, I don't think I think it's frustrating when you read and you hear so many different people saying, I don't think it's going to happen, and here's why. And logistically, I believe it should not happen. And speaking for what you're reading and seeing. And it's frustrating because of how much you want this to happen and how much economies rely on this to happen, how much we need this stuff to happen. But these articles and these the people that you may see on whatever sports channel or website that you're viewing, when they're giving their opinion, they're giving an opinion. I mean, their jobs, like ours, rely on sports. They've made a living in sports. They love sports. They want football. They just don't believe that it can happen. So it's frustrating, and it's tough to balance the frustration with the, well, God, all I'm reading from you is it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So does that mean you don't want it to happen?
Yeah.
I can't go that far to that side, because of course they want it to happen. Like, their jobs depend on it to happen. And
that's what I'm saying.
Their enjoyment, their simple pleasure outside of jobs depends on that to happen. So they want it. They just don't see in their heads how it could happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm built different. I'm just under the assumption we're playing football until someone says we're not playing football. Like I can't sit here and say, well, it's not going to happen, or we shouldn't do it, or, well, we absolutely should do it. Like, I don't have enough of that information.
Right.
So I'm under the assumption that people who know a hell of a lot more than I do, and they're a lot smarter than I am, are working on this. They're going to get this figured out. And the season hasn't been postponed. It hasn't been canceled. It hasn't been backed up. It hasn't been delayed. Any of that stuff. They're still working through what I'm going to call kinks here, for lack of better terms, to try to get things ironed out. And until there is something that says this is not going to happen, that's when I'll adjust my thought process. Okay, all right, well, how are we going to fix this? So yesterday, Senator Richard Blumenthal said this, quote, "There's absolutely nothing different between the Ivy League and any division except for the money, to be very blunt." Well, number one, he's so wrong. He is so wrong there before I even continue. But I will continue. It's about the money. And if the other schools fail to follow the Ivy League's lead, it will be only because of the money. And, in fact, it will be another misguided act in a long litany of putting school profits ahead of the people who play for them. That is just such BS. I really, 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 really wish Congress would get the hell out of this and deal with the crap that they have to deal with. He's wrong. Darren, we know it's about the money, but it's not just about the money that is in the pockets of athletics departments. It's about the money, as you said yesterday, of College Station, Texas, of Statesboro, Georgia, of Athens, Georgia, of Clemson, South Carolina, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. These places that rely on the major universities and colleges in their small, tiny little towns to churn the engine, the economical engine that is college athletics. That's what these. I mean, you think when you go to Athens, name one large business in Athens, Georgia? Name one.
Honestly, I was there a year ago, and I didn't see one or many.
Okay, you know why? Because it's mom and pops. It's small little stores that sell clothing and apparel. It's restaurants. It's bars. A lot of bars. Been to a lot of them. It's it's gas stations that rely that time of year and people coming into town and filling up their tanks. It's these hotels.
Terrapin Brewery.
Yes, man. These are the places. Yes, it is about the money. Richard, Senator, excuse me. Senator, let me address him properly. Senator Blumenthal, it is about the money, the economies that you're working for. And so we have to make every effort. We can't just give up on these people. You can't do it. Now, you said something yesterday that you're right about when we had JC on. Do you push forward at the safety risk of a kid who might have an underlying condition who could die from this? No, you don't do that. No, you don't do that. You figure out other ways to do things. But if there's a sliver of hope, then you open that door and try to figure it out. That's what we do in America. We've always done this. So when I see this crap, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle. I'm not even talking about that crap. When I see this, I had somebody comment about that. I was it's a Democrat. I don't care about that. When I see this, I'm like, dude, yes, you're right. It is about the money. It's about John and Mary Smith, who opened an apparel store 20 years ago, and they're about to go under because they're not going to have college athletics. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, but unfortunately for comments like this, they're ignoring the fact that over the last 100 years, this country has designed itself to ingrain college athletics, major college athletics, into the fabric of our economy. And when it doesn't run, we don't run.
There's no denying that. And what he said is crazy. To say that the only difference is just finance. I mean, there are large scale differences between the Ivy League, which doesn't even give out scholarships, and the size of the schools and the tuition and the academic. There are large scale differences between the Ivy League and virtually every other, including the FCS leagues around the country. And yes, this is about money because, especially for the Power Fives that are profiting off football, it's driving the economy.
Sure.
I think we all understand that. And then the balance that you have to strike is what you just brought up. What are we willing to risk? I do agree there's a sliver of hope there. There is a sliver of hope, which the hope we have is, 3 weeks. The sliver right now that we have is 3 weeks. We have 3 weeks to figure out, can we figure this thing out? Can we make this safe? Can we make sure that, number one, nobody dies? Number two, it's not just about the deaths, because if one of these students or athletes gets sick and passes it on to someone, that's a problem. Mm-hmm. You've Freddie Freeman, who is probably in better shape than every single person listening to this, right?
Right.
He's detailed how bad his struggle currently was with COVID-19. This isn't a just a life or death thing. it also has long-lasting effects that they're studying. It has effects on the heart. It has effects on long-term health that they're trying to figure out, but they don't quite know everything yet because it's relatively new. So all of this, how much do you want to put on 18 to 23, 24-year-olds? How much risk do you want them to inherit so that we can keep our economy going, or can we figure out another way?
Right.
We have a sliver of hope. It's about 3 weeks of a sliver.
Yeah, and that sliver of hope might, obviously looks much differently per the conversations we just had. I'm not necessarily saying that we have to start on time. There's nothing about this year that's going to be normal. We know that part. So, I'm not saying there's a sliver of hope necessarily. Okay, we're going to get all 12 games in. And hey, then it's bowl season, and then it's playoff season. All right, yip, whatever. That's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying that there is hope that we can accomplish something. And what is that something? That's what these guys and gals have been studying for the last few months and will continue to really study and clamp down on over the next, few weeks or so, Darren. And then we'll move forward from there. The last thing, look, we all want college football. We all want it, okay? But the last thing that I want is, in you and pretty much everybody else out there whose brain decently works, the last thing that we want, imagine if that was your kid, and you're like, man, I don't know that I want you doing this. We don't want people playing in fear. We don't want the sickness and potential deaths, and although that's a very low chance, I know that. But there is a chance, and so we don't want all that stuff. So if it can be done safely, then that's what we want. And if that means we can't sit in the stands, then we can't sit in the stands. That's okay. There's some people who have spun this narrative, Darren, which I just that's one of the things that bothers me is, oh, well, you just want to throw these kids out on the field like gladiators for your own enjoyment. Well, no. Yeah. Yes, we do want them out there for our own enjoyment. Of course. That's what it's always brought us our own enjoyment. Yeah, of course. But no, we don't want to just throw them out there to risk themselves for me so I can get my 3-hour fix on Saturday nights. No, I don't want that. I do want it if it's possible to do it safely. But that's where we are. That's where we are. Jim Harbaugh is certainly pushing for football season. He's been pretty outspoken. Jim Harbaugh is pretty outspoken anyways. But it's not going to be Jim Harbaugh's way in any way, shape. None of these coaches are really going to have much of any say in this.
Correct.
They'll have a say, but their say isn't going to go anywhere.
It's the presidents.
No, it's the exactly.
It's
health officials and then presidents and
right. The athletic directors have an input. The athletic director's input is we want to play, and it's the presidents and them relying on the medical experts who are going to determine it. What Jim Harbaugh said yesterday is, it's dumb. It's on the screen. It's on the screen right now, and
he just says what he wants.
That's fine. It's dumb. There's no expert view that I'm aware of that sports will make our current situation as it relates to COVID worse. That's dumb because every expert is saying it will make it worse. Every single one of them is saying that you put a bunch of people together in a tight space, and then there will be. There are going to be flare-ups again. That
are you talking about the fans or the players?
The players.
Oh,
well, everyone at the moment. Because what he said is, look, COVID is a part of life right now. We know that. We have to live with it. And in his words, there's no expert view I'm aware of that sports will make the situation worse. That's dumb. Because right now, every expert is saying they will make it worse. That's why we're in the position we're in, having to decide how can we make it safe so that the experts will say, okay, it is safe to play.
You're right. If you just throw the gloves out there like we throw the gloves out there, that's a baseball term, but you know what I'm saying. Obviously, bad things more than likely are going to happen. If we have good protocols in place and good safety measures in place to minimize that risk, that's going to minimize bad things happening. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, we're going to talk much more about this. David Cloninger, he's up next here in just a minute because Ray Tanner spoke at length about this yesterday with our friends Jay Phillips and Tommy Moody and others on 107.5 The Game in his monthly appearance with the fine folks in Columbia, South Carolina. So that is all ahead and a whole lot more. Plus, Corey McCartney, Scott Glaze in hour 2. We got plenty of baseball and golf to get to and more on football. So it's a jam show. An hour and a half left. We hope you'll stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Honey Baked Ham in Somerville and in Mount Pleasant is your home for catering and lunch. Honey Baked Somerville, owned by former Gamecock right-hander Mike Cisco, is just off the interstate, and they are ready to cater to your next business or family meal. Plus, drop in for an incredible sandwiches daily for lunch. The Mount Pleasant location is at the foot of the Ravenel Bridge and always ready to serve and cater to your next meals as well. Plus, delivery is available. Honeybake.com to find your menu today.
What's up, guys? It's JB. Obviously, things have been kind of crazy with the coronavirus taking over our lives. We're stuck inside with family, finding ways to be creative and probably tapping the liquor cabinet a little bit. If you don't have Patrick Davis's Whiskey Jam in yours, put on your mask and gloves and head to Bottles or Burris liquor stores here in Charleston. The Blackberry is my personal favorite on the rocks, but the original Whiskey Jam is Patrick's. So either way, you're winning with Whiskey Jam. WhiskeyJam.com, PatrickDavis.com.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the low country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. DB'scheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
All right, 12:32. Welcome back. Thursday afternoon on the JB and Goldwater Show, July the 9th, as we steamroll towards football season, hopefully. To join this very lengthy conversation Darren and I have begun the show with, it's our friend, is an incredibly talented now father, David Cloninger, who writes for the Post and Courier. What's up, buddy?
How you doing, Jamie? But I don't know if we're steamrolling toward football season. I'd say we're more like a turtle, crawling toward there, an inch at a time. We'll see how it actually goes.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. We've in the first segment, Darren and I tried to cover as much as we could from the news yesterday. Obviously, the Ivy League, some comments made by a senator out there, Jim Harbaugh, this new Brett McMurphy poll, and others. But Coach Tanner did speak with Jay and the guys on 107.5 The Game yesterday, and he was once again pretty positive, David, unless you've heard anything differently than I've heard the last couple of months from Coach Tanner. He's been fairly optimistic. He said yesterday, just a couple of quick quotes here, I think we're going to play football. Not sure I can define the dates as much as I would like, though. He also said that, maybe 15 to 20,000 folks in the stands. He said that their COVID testing numbers have been really good position right now, extremely low, or in some sports non-existent, and I think football, soccer, volleyball, they're all back on campus. So of everything that Coach Tanner said yesterday with Jay, what was the biggest takeaway for you?
Well, Jamie, I think that the biggest thing was that he actually put a number on estimated fans in Williams-Brice Stadium with the 15 or 20,000. That's really the first time that he's authored or said that declarative number. And of course he said that could change. It could go up or down. But before this, he'd been saying, we have contingencies for all percentages of fans in Williams-Brice Stadium. So that was the biggest thing I took out of it. He always remained optimistic. And I think a lot of that is because it's better than being the opposite. You don't want to be pessimistic, and you try to be as realistic as you can for your fan base. But right now, how can you be realistic? Because you just don't know how this thing is going to go. So, he said what he said, and it was like, well, this is the best case scenario. You're trying to look at it and what you hope to be. And he did mention the at least possibility of a spring football season, although he said that's very, very low on the option list. So really it's kind of the same thing that we've all been saying ever since this hit us back in March. You hope to have these options, and there are several options you could take, but you don't ever know what's going to happen from today to tomorrow, especially as cases keep rising in this state.
David Cloninger's with us, covers the Gamecocks for the Post and Courier, as well as anybody does covering the Gamecocks. And are you able to get any information from some of the other schools in covering the Gamecocks? Obviously, the SEC, a big part of that. Have you gotten any information from any sources from any of the other teams or ADs, a feel of how similar they are thinking to Ray Tanner, or differently than they're thinking?
Well, really, it all depends on which state they're in. In Texas, it's a lot on the rise now. So A&M's probably going to have a lot different numbers than, say, Tennessee would. Tennessee right now is saying, it seems to be very much under control in our state. There are no negative tests among the Volunteers football team. So they look to be in pretty good shape. Kentucky, you start to see some cases on the rise. Their governor is probably going to pass a mandate today requiring face coverings to try to limit what has been a rise. So it really all depends from state to state, which is why Commissioner Greg Sankey or any one football coach / athletic director, they can't make an authoritative statement of what's going to happen. I realize that Greg Sankey has said, we'll probably know about mid-July, which is creeping up on us, what we plan to do for football. But let's be honest, fellas, what's he going to say? The only thing that he can say that's really groundbreaking or newsworthy is we're not going to play, or we're going to play in the spring, or we're going to have to cancel some games. Otherwise, they'll say, we'll just, go by the safety protocol school to school, because when your conference covers 11 states, you can't make any kind of blanket statement about what's going to happen. Different states have different virus levels. And, especially in this one, right now the governor has said that you can't have an event in a stadium. So you can't really overcome the governor's rule if you're just the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference.
David, let me revert back real quick to this maybe 15 to 20,000 number, and we'll get to what the season could look like here in a minute as far as games played and who they play and stuff like that. But when you throw out numbers like that, the most common question that continues to be asked in every fan base is, well, how are you going to decide who does and does not get in? And I don't know, maybe I'm in my own little boat when I think about this, but why don't you just ask the fans who wants to come? I mean, if you're South Carolina and you've got 50,000+ season ticket holders, and because clearly if it's going to be 15 to 20,000, I can't imagine they're just going to jump right over guys like myself and others who pay a bunch of money to be a season ticket holder and go to just single game tickets. So send out an email to all of your season ticket holders and say, would you be willing to come, blah, 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 whatever, however you word that email. You might actually have half these people respond and say no, and then you just remove them, and then you go down the list, and maybe that's how you can start to fill out the stands if you do put people in there.
Well, that definitely is a good idea, Jamie. The only question there is, when do you start sending out those letters? Because if you start it now, there'll probably be a lot of people who say, I probably don't want to go the way this is going, but you never know where that way this is going to end. I mean, let's just say that everything is cleared up by September, which I think we all can agree is pretty much a pipe dream by this point.
Sure.
Well, then, of course, you're going to have a lot more people saying, of course, I'll go. But then again, what's the student population of that 15 to 20,000? How do those tickets get randomly decided? I mean, it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, it's probably going to be the guys with the most money, the guys who are the most longest tenured in the Gamecock Club. But I think that they're going to have to do some kind of lottery about who gets those kind of tickets. I mean, yes, your idea definitely has merit, but it's not something that you can really do right now, because once you have that answer, you're kind of eliminating the chance for people to change their minds later on. Saying, well, I know I said on July 8th that I didn't want to go, but everything seems to have cleared up by now, so I do want to go. So it's going to be a very, very tight window of when they finally decide what to do and actually implementing it. But hopefully, once they get to August, and if football preseason practice goes off as scheduled, they could have about a month there to say, okay, here's what we're going to do for the first 3 or 4 games. Who wants to come and who doesn't want to come. And maybe you could do it that way and maybe things get cleared up by October. But we'll just have to see what happens, man. I know I keep saying that and repeating myself, but that's really the only answer there is. The virus is in control here. And until it's going to be managed or handled a lot better than the folks of this state have handled it thus far, we're just not going to have any clear answers on this thing.
Yeah, Jamie and I were saying just a little bit ago, there is a sliver of hope. And our sliver of hope right now is about a 3-week timetable. David, you know this. Jamie, anyone who studied media or journalism, one of the first things you learn in terms of how to report is doing these like man on the street type interviews. One question, going around asking someone and kind of gathering information about one specific topic. If you were to do that right now on the streets of Columbia, what would be the sense of the population there about the optimism or lack thereof of football?
I think it would probably be around 50-50. Yep. There's going to be some people who are saying like, hey, listen, you can't live your life afraid. This disease has a 95% recovery rate, and I think we're all going to get it at some point, so it might as well be now. And then there'll be others who say like, I just don't want to take a chance. I have elderly parents. I have a small child at home. I don't want to do anything where I could get sick, and while I trust myself to recover, I don't want to put them in harm's way. And then, of course, you might get some of the young people, the students who say like, yeah, man, give me a ticket. I want to go. Yeah. Let's go. That's what I'm here to do, So I think it would probably be overall a 50-50 proposition at this point, which I know is kind of a mealy-mouthed way to say it. But if you'd asked me that question a month ago, it probably would have been 80-24. Saying like, I know we'll get over it, we'll be okay. But that was before everything started rising in this state so drastically. I mean, it's not just the number of people that are being tested that are coming up positive. Of course, more tests will yield more positives, but you look at the percentage of positives. A good ratio would be 3% of people out of every 100 who get positive. Right now, we're at 20. Mm-hmm. So that's not real good, especially when you consider that you can pack 80,000 people in that stadium on Saturdays.
David Cloninger on Twitter at DCPNC Post and Courier. DC, Darren and I, until they tell us differently, I'm going to assume that we're going to start the season on time, but there's, it's becoming more and more likely that might not happen. If we don't, or if they condense this schedule, is there a realistic possibility, and I'm kind of looking at this poll that Brett McMurphy put out this morning, that South Carolina and others, let's just say the group of 5 here, could only play league schedules?
Well, that could be. And just because most, if not all of the SEC teams, I don't have a schedule in front of me, but is there anybody that actually starts with a conference game on September the 4th or 5th? I'm not sure if there is,
I don't
but
think
I would
so.
That there wouldn't be.
No, I'm pretty sure there's not.
It would be kind of easy to do it from that sense, but then, of course, you're affecting the other team involved, which, South Carolina would lose a $900,000 guarantee against Coastal Carolina, where I guess Coastal Carolina would lose that money. Right. But, Georgia's supposed to play Virginia in its opener. So now who's Virginia going to go play? It's things like that you can't push over one domino without pushing over another. But I've heard that possibility a lot, and I think it makes sense for the first couple of weeks of the year. But, sooner or later, you're going to run into a conference game. And that's when you really have to start thinking about, okay, how are we going to limit this? Because if you say, we're not doing anything till October 1st, okay, well, how many games is that going to affect? South Carolina and Missouri is pretty early in the year. I believe Tennessee and Florida always played that second or third week of the season. There's going to be conference games affected. So if there's going to be a drastic rescheduling instead of just canceling a couple of games that almost everybody has in common, they got to start doing that now.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would think. If if there's a possibility that you can only play a conference schedule, maybe the league behind the scenes somewhere has actually already reworked a schedule where maybe it stretches 8 games over, say, 12 weeks in case you do have cancellations. Everybody has the same off weeks or something like that. And if you happen to have, okay, look, Georgia and South Carolina are scheduled to play this week, but Georgia's got 30 players positive. Carolina's got 20. They've elected to move that to an off week and play during that week. And, if they lose it that week, they just lose the ball game. But maybe something like that's going on behind the scenes. I have no idea, but you would think if they're looking at, quote, models day in and day out, this would probably be in that conversation somewhere.
It's a possibility, but let's say that there's a probably 20 models that they're looking at. That would probably be number 18, and number 19 would be spring football.
Right.
So they're way down on the list, but that's something that they're looking at. I mean, you don't want to have to redo these things because that throws the TV networks into a tizzy. That might upset your already travel plans with hotel bookings. If you got to charter a plane, that kind of stuff. So I know that they looked at it, and that's from folks at the league office telling me that. But it's not going to be a specific plan, just about, is it going to be a massive redo of the schedule, kind of like Major League Baseball did, or just kind of cherry picking and say, they don't have a conference game that week, so they can be off. And maybe we can hold this one if, like you said, some guys get sick and they have to remake it up, So there's all kinds of things that are going on there. But, yeah, I'm sure that there are quite a few people in the SEC office in Birmingham right now with a big multicolored grid on the wall of every team and every game that they play saying, what if we move this one here? How's that going to affect the rest of them? As you can imagine, that's a pretty tedious process when you got 14 teams at 12 games apiece.
No kidding.
David, I'm going to kind of step outside the football realm here. And obviously, Jamie and I talk to you all the time. You're one of the best there is. We love local papers, national papers as well, because of the benefit that it provides us in sports, and there's benefits outside of sports as well. But there was a trend for a while of newspapers hurting. Post and Courier's opening a new branch in Greenville.
Myrtle Beach, too.
Yeah, and in Myrtle Beach. And how is this pandemic affecting the newspaper business? I mean, are you guys – my sense is it might actually be helping business in a way. I mean, not to put it in a good light, but is the newspaper industry, at least Post and Courier, finding success through the adversity right now?
Well, guys, all I can do is speak for our company, and we're just fine. We're doing well. That comes from a lot of reasons. We have a great team working with us. We have a great company to work for. And, yes, you are correct. We are opening 2 new branch newsrooms in Myrtle Beach and Greenville, staffed probably from about 5 to 10 folks apiece, just so we can cover all areas of the state equally. So very thankful for that. Very thankful for my position, and that I haven't had to have that call or email, during this time like a lot of my colleagues have. Unfortunately, with the newspaper business, I can't say that for everybody, just because, when everybody's out of work, then nobody's going out buying goods in stores. So your advertising suffers. Advertising's the lifeblood of every newspaper, so you don't really have that. Then you do have a lot of the population, led by the president himself, who considers that all news that's harmful to him is fake. And you do have a lot of people trumpeting that it's fake. So they're not trying to believe. I believe it was Simon and Garfunkel who once sang, a man, he hears what he wants to hear and he disregards the rest. That's what we're doing right now. You hear exactly what you want to hear and you don't go to read it. You click on the headline, you don't read anything else, stuff like that. So the news business continues to hurt. There's a lot of reasons for that, but, the main thing is that social media makes it such that anybody can put out the news.
Yeah.
Whether it's true or not,
exactly.
It's a little more delving, and most people don't want to do that right now. So it's, like I said, very thankful for my position, very thankful to be in the spot that I'm in. I wish I could say the same for all of my colleagues in the media, because a lot of them have had to accept that call or that email saying their services are no longer required.
The ACC today, DC, pushed Olympic sports back to at least September the 1st. Is that going to be a similar case in the SEC and others, in your opinion?
It's kind of just a stopgap, Jamie, if you think about it. You lose a couple of soccer games, a couple of volleyball games, maybe a cross-country meet or two. I have not heard that the SEC will do that, but basically you're just buying yourself a few more days. Honestly, all these ACC teams are going to be having football camp at the same time. So what are you really doing but limiting your opponents from coming into your campus or your team going to their campus. It affects it now. It's a little bit, but right now it's kind of like trying to put your finger in a hole in the dam when there's a huge hole right next to you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The water's just breaching the top and pouring on you while you got your finger stuck in the one crack. So everybody's trying to do something that makes it appear that it has everybody's safety and health in mind, but that by itself, it just seems like a whole lot of little. That's not really going to make an impact. So we'll see how it goes. The way we are right now, I mean, one conference does something, the others decide to go ahead and do it, which is why a lot of people were asking me, since the Ivy League pushed its football season at least until the spring, if it plays at all, do you think other conferences will do it? Like, I know that they did that for their basketball tournament, but for football, the Ivy League is not in any way comparable to a Power 5 team. Ivy League football don't make money, and they're not eligible for playoffs. So really, it's like, okay, you guys do what's best for you, but because they did it, that doesn't any way close to meaning that a Power 5 team will do it.
Nah, I believe Senator Blumenthal. No, I don't. All right, but let's wrap this segment on a couple of pieces in the Post and Courier. First, I want to ask what in your opinion is the legacy of King Dixon, obviously passing away just a few days ago, and he's an American hero. His country in the Marines. He was a great football player at South Carolina. He was an athletics director, oversaw them entering the SEC. But he's been criticized by a lot of fans for a long time for some of the decisions he made as AD. But what, in your opinion, is his legacy?
Well, it's a complicated one. Obviously, no one is ever questioning King's service to his country. The man has meritorious combat service in Vietnam, was a Marine for 22 years, and no one will ever question his exploits on the football field or his loyalty to South Carolina. It's just his athletic director's tenure that mostly comes into question, and I get that. The best things that you can say about King is that he's as loyal a USC Gamecock as you'll ever find. Mm-hmm. Anytime his alma mater called him to come, he was there, and he did a very good job of what he thought was the best job as possible. I know his AD tenure had its detractors, but the two things that he did that really stand out to me is, one, after all the steroid scandals from Joe Morrison and the aftermath of that, he was able to work with the NCAA and get USC off with no significant punishment. That is not a light move, considering that at that time, the NCAA had just slapped SMU with the death penalty. And, USC, already having been on probation, they were kind of in the crosshairs there. King got them off out of that without anything significant. And second, of course, decision still lasts today. He said yes to joining the SEC. And I know that wasn't his first option. I think he wanted to be the spot that went to Florida State in the ACC. But once it became clear the SEC was interested in USC, he said, okay, yeah, let's do it. And let's not forget, fellas, USC got into the SEC when Texas was also a consideration.
Yeah.
So that's not small potatoes. There are the detractors. He fired George Feldman without ever saying a reason, which was not a great move considering what happened afterwards. And then, of course, there was not going to a bowl game in 1990 when the team had clearly earned it, saying that they need to concentrate on their academics. But every athletic director is going to have a bad move or two, a bad hire or two, and they got some good moves. So with King, the Gamecocks are in the SEC right now because he said yes, and that should not be forgotten.
And as part of being in the SEC, about a little over now, 10 years ago, South Carolina won their first national championship in college baseball. On the 4th of July, a story written by David Cloninger hit the Post and Courier about my old roommate, Jay Brown, at South Carolina. And I told Darren earlier, one of the best, if not the best person on the planet. I don't know anybody who's a better person than Jay Brown. So I'm not gonna give away everything that's in this because I want people to read it if they have not. It's titled "Memories of Gamecocks 2010 CWS Championship Help Fan Grieve Loss of Brother." If you could summarize this column without giving too much away and explain how this came about. I was texting with Jay about it this morning, but if you could give an explanation as to how this kind of landed at your feet, I'd appreciate that.
Well, Jamie, that's exactly how it did happen. A couple of days after the College World Series Remembrance Series ran, a guy in Omaha named Trey Ashby reached out to me and said, "Hey, listen, I've had this story in mind for a couple of years now, and I really want to write it now, and it's about Jay Brown and my foster brother, and I'd like to send it to you." And I said, "Well, sure, send it to me. That'll be fine." And I think that, the first idea was we would run it as a reader submission. But looking back on it, I said, you know what, let me take this. Nothing wrong with what he wrote, but I said, let me take this and just write a few more things about it. So, basically is that Trey Ashby had some foster siblings. His parents decided to take foster children and adopt them late in life after their own kids were grown. And he got real close with his foster brothers during the Gamecocks' 2010 run. And a big part of that was because Jay Brown was so nice and welcoming to them. And, tragically, one of the foster brothers was killed earlier this year. And I'm glad that Trey got to reach out to me so we could tell his story and how much that 2010 run still meant to him and how much Jay Brown's kindness has kind of helped heal that gap. Nothing could ever replace the loss of a brother. But just thinking back on that has at least brought a few smiles. And I thank Trey for telling me the story. I thank Jay for speaking about it. And I'm just hoping that it could bring a few more smiles and a little bit of happiness in what was such a senseless crime.
I hope folks will read this. We've retweeted it, and anybody that hasn't read it to this point, please do so. It's at thepostandcourier.com. It's on David's timeline, our timeline as well. Mine personally, like I said, I've known Jay a long time. And this too, as we wrap up here, DC, this is just another example of another great story that came out of this program with this team. I mean, the Baylor Teal story obviously is out there, and there's a bunch of other stuff. If you happen to know any of these guys, this was a really good group of guys. And I told Jay, I've known Jay for 15 years, okay? I lived with the dude. I didn't even know about this, and that's just who Jay is. He doesn't tell you about this type of stuff. But it's another story. David, you were very close with this program and this team in particular too. There was so many wonderful stories that happened with these guys that people are still finding out about today, just like this one.
Oh, absolutely, Jamie. I wish I'd had room in the paper to tell all of them. And, of course, some of them didn't need to be told in public. But
some
being around that team, and I think I said it before, I was around for 57 of their 70 games that season. It was just a great group of guys. They still are a great group of guys.
Yep.
And to see them make that run was the thrill of my career. I mean, it was just a terrific time to be there with them. And, of course, it's not as easy on the heartstrings or on a deadline pressure when you're a newspaper writer. But if you do ever have a team get to go to Omaha, I would suggest that they lose the first game and then win all the rest of them. That's the best way to do it because you truly are living day to day. Well, I might have to go home tomorrow. Well, I might not. So that definitely was the best way to do it.
You're one of the best, my friend. Thank you so much for your extended time once again this week. Obviously, All Eyes on Football will continue to monitor your timeline and the Post and Courier as to any additional information that comes out here in the future about what we might see this fall. David Cloninger, thank you so much, brother.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
You got it. On Twitter at DCP&C. Time for a timeout. When we return, we'll shift gears and get into some baseball with Corey McCartney. But first, the national anthem up next on the JB and Goldwater Show.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks. Not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Houff, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the National Anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
1:01 Thursday afternoon. Hey, there's sun in the Low Countries. The first time we've really seen it this week. Welcome back. Darren, Jamie, here for one more hour. Thanks to David Cloninger for joining us in that last segment. Pretty much a whole hour on college football based on a lot of the information we received yesterday. And we were talking about this before we came on the air, Darren, that the next couple of weeks is going to be pretty much like this every day. We're going to get information, and then finally one day we're going to get something like real.
The one piece of information we want. Are we going to play? When are we going to play?
Right. one day we will all rejoice together and be able to celebrate college football. Listening on the Podbean app, watching Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and you can always go back and find us on iHeart and
Spotify, Google Play, anywhere you can get a podcast.
I always forget what they are.
Yeah.
Scott Glaze coming up later on golf. But first, a nice bearded gentleman joining us from just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. He knows the Braves inside and out, and he is Corey McCartney. Hey, man.
How you guys doing?
We're good. We're getting close to baseball. How you feeling?
Good. But I got to watch the guys play from a security camera yesterday, so some weird inter-squad scrimmage stuff going on. But, people are actually playing the game.
Real quick note on the Braves. They just tweeted 4 minutes ago they've added infielder Bryce Ball to their club player pool for the 2020 season. I don't even know who that is. Do you know who Bryce Ball is?
Yeah, he is an absolute monster. He really got some people excited in spring training. I mean, just a massive dude, left-handed hitter, plays first base, just a lot of raw power. If Freddie Freeman is out for any, duration of the season itself, I mean, this is in obviously Nick Markakis being out, down a left-handed bat. This could be one of the answers, potentially Bryce Ball, an exciting young player for sure.
All right, so you mentioned Markakis. King Felix also has announced that he's going to sit out the season. Which one of them is the bigger loss for the Braves right now?
I mean, I think they both kind of have their sides of it. I mean, I think Markakis isn't the player that he was, but he's a massive influence in that clubhouse in terms of leadership. But Felix Hernandez was, I think, going to be a real key as they look to piggyback starters early in the season when the roster before they go to 24 after 6 weeks. So I think he was going to play a part. Certainly from a leadership standpoint, it's hard to replace what Markakis meant to this team.
Ronald Acuna Jr. won't be playing left field this year. Do I understand that correct?
He will see some time in center field, but primarily they're looking at him as the right fielder. And it does make sense now, especially when you consider the fact that Markakis is gone. So you're looking at Marcelo Zuna and Adam Duvall being the guys in left field. I mean, we could see Austin Riley get into the mix in the outfield as well. But I think they like Acuna's arm a lot in right field. And certainly he has the ability to play center, and he has the range and the speed to play center. I think we saw some missteps with him last year. Remember a ball Cody Bellinger hit off of his glove that went for a home run. So there's been some kind of misplays along the way with him as he acclimates to that position. I think ultimately we'll look back and see him primarily in center field, but for now, the Braves are eyeing him in right field.
What's the sense of optimism's not the right word, but excitement is the word I'm looking for around the Braves? Because there's a different level depending on which team you look at. I mean, some teams are having issues with testing. Some teams are jacked up and ready to go. Mike Clevenger put out there for the Indians, like he's pumped and, ready to get this thing going. So what's the excitement level for Atlanta right now?
Their best player, I mean, maybe not their best player, Acuna, a lot of people would say their best player, but the heart and soul of this team is sitting home sick right now. So I think that kind of tells you a lot about this team. I mean, that's a conversation with Freddie Freeman is what ultimately led Nick Markakis to decide that this just wasn't right for him and he was going to elect not to play this season. So I think that's part of it. There's part of the identity of this team is hanging out there, and they don't know, when he's going to come back. So I think that's a big element of it. Cole Hamels talked about how many times you're just going through the rigors just to get inside the ballpark. And I think there's just some weirdness to this whole situation. And, and it's all just massively expanded, I think, and magnified by the fact that Freddie Freeman's not playing baseball right now.
I'm going to quote your tweet here from a couple of days ago. It will be 21 games before the Braves see their first opponent with an over-under below 27.5 wins. Welcome to the NL East, AL East gauntlet. The Braves have a real case for the toughest schedule in baseball.
I think they do. And the one team that they'll play before that 21 games is up when they finally get to face the Marlins is the Blue Jays, a team that I think a lot of people believe, could make a run at 500 with a young, exciting lineup this year. I mean, you've got to play the Yankees during that early stretch. So the last 20 games, I will say, have 10 of them against the Orioles and the Marlins, which are a benefit, obviously, to any team trying to make a playoff push. But things are going to be really tough for this team early on, without question.
All right, go ahead. Sorry.
The NL East, AL East, is there any question that that's the toughest? Can I call it league that's out there this year? grouping, whatever we want to go with it. I mean, is there any question that's the toughest, even though travel-wise it may be one of the easier?
I mean, I think it's definitely the toughest. You consider four teams that are really, you could put those four teams, obviously the Braves, the Nationals, the Phillies, and the Mets, you could put them in any order almost. Every one of them, slated to win more than 31.5 games this season. So obviously the Braves and the Nationals, the defending world champion and the two-time defending division champion. We know that the Phillies have retooled. Zach Wheeler steps into the fold there. The Mets have tons of pitching. Pete Alonso obviously coming off Rookie of the Year. And then you add in the AL East, the best team in the American League, and the Yankees, the Rays, who were in the postseason last year. I think we've kind of set the Red Sox off to the side, but they're still a very talented team. And then the Blue Jays. So I think it is tough. I mean, the NL Central is obviously deep, but then you offset that by having the AL Central when you're going to have, teams like the Tigers. Obviously the White Sox are improving, but it's nowhere near what the NL Central is going to have to face with the AL East and the NL East combined.
All right. So with Felix sitting out this year because of COVID concerns, is there still a realistic possibility we could see stacked starters for Atlanta, and who would replace him?
I think you're looking at Kyle Wright probably being the top choice there to kind of step into his role in the rotation. Sean Newcomb is going to vie for that spot, but I think Sean Newcomb is really interesting when you consider last year. They obviously started out in the staff, but transitioned to a bullpen role and was effective, especially down the stretch. I mean, I think guys had a 188 batting average against him in the last month of the season. So they're looking at doing the piggyback, and we've seen it a little bit in the scrimmages so far. You saw Soroka and Fried get the starts yesterday. Guys came in behind them. Josh Tomlin came in and gave up a 2-run bomb to Adam Duvall. So that obviously not a positive there, but I think this is kind of the idea that you're going to see guys go 2 to 3 innings. They have another group to go 2 to 3 innings behind them. So I think regardless of if Felix Hernandez was in the mix, that was going to be what they were going to do those first couple runs through while those rosters are still expanded to 30.
Yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to watch that because, I mean, if you have Fried out there who, let's say he's, through 3 innings, he's thrown 25 pitches and he's given up 1 hit or no hits. Well, you go yank him? I mean, you're going to have to leave him in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I think that Brian Snitker hasn't really talked about yet because they're still trying to get an idea of how this thing's even going to look to kind of have, hypotheticals built into it. I mean, I think you kind of have to go for feel. Maybe you let the guy go an inning or more longer just because of those kind of, variables at play. But I think that's the idea, is that you just try to shield these guys early on in the season because they just haven't had time. Well, a lot of them have been throwing to just build up those innings that we're so used to becoming a part of spring training.
Is there any update on Freddie Freeman? We just touched on him a little bit ago, but is there any update on how he's feeling and if he has any sense of when he might be strong enough to join the rest of the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think the last we heard, from Brian Snitker was that he was feeling better. Obviously still, he had body aches, chills, high fever, all that stuff his wife Chelsea was putting on Instagram. I mean, the idea is you have to go 24 hours without symptoms.
Yep.
And then you have to complete 72 hours symptoms free. Then you have to complete 2 tests that are negative within more than a 24-hour span. So, you've got to be symptom free first, and then we'll get to whether or not you can get through the test. And then who knows how much this took out of him from a physical toll. How it's not like he's just going to be bouncing back the next day and just be 100% Freddie Freeman. So we're down 2 weeks. We've got 2 weeks. So I think at this point, until you see him step onto that field, I think you have to go into this thinking he's not going to be playing against the Mets on July 24th.
Wow. Yeah. Well, and, Freddie, Corey, correct me if I'm wrong here, but he won't need a lot of time to get ready to go. I mean, Freddie's Freddie. I mean, half Freddie is better than no Freddie, right?
We've seen him play through an elbow that was, disaster, a wrist that was a disaster. It said he felt like he was swinging a wet newspaper a couple years ago to last year, knowing that, he had a bone spur in his elbow and obviously ultimately needed surgery for that. So we've seen him go through a lot. It's just from a physical toll. I mean, it's not like you can just say this is a hamstring, I can take it easy with it. I mean, this is something that's, zaps a lot out of you. And if you're not able to get up and be physical and be active and build up endurance, I mean, those are all factors at play.
How's Dansby look?
The hair looks awesome.
Salad, man. It's salad.
I think the thing with him is just, can he stay healthy? We've seen it in spurts with him. We've seen highly productive spurts from him. We've just never seen it through the duration of a full season. I think this is a critical year for him. I mean, you're talking about a guy who is a former number 1 pick. And at this point, he's been an everyday major league player, but he has not lived up to that draft status. So I think Brendan Shoemake, who they got from Texas A&M in the draft last year, has kind of started to make some noise. I think this is a big year for Dansby Swanson to go out and prove that he's the player that the Braves believe he is.
Corey, I think that the Braves can make an argument here that they might be better set up for the DH than some American League teams this year. They have a ton of options as to what to do game in and game out with that DH role.
They do. Certainly Marcell Ozuna, who, when they got him, they said, this is an everyday outfielder for us. I mean, I think even getting him, some days off to get him in that DH spot helps. I mean, Austin Riley, can get there. I mentioned Bryce Ball coming over. Yonder Alonso, a guy that they got who's, obviously played a ton of games at the major league level. Johan Camargo. I mean, you could go on and on. Tyler Flowers, you want to get him into the mix there. So they have a lot of different guys that they can work in. Adam Duvall, a lot of big bats. But at this point right now, though, they're missing a left-handed bat unless Bryce Ball is that guy that comes up. So while they do have options, I think the bench is kind of taking a little bit of a hit here now for sure with Markakis electing not to play.
We're talking with Corey McCartney right now. Nobody knows the Braves inside and out quite like Corey does. The book that you've got out there, it's help me out with the name. It's The Dugout.
This one right here. So there you go. That's your shameless plug right there.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
The Atlanta Braves Dugout.
Boom. There it is.
Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can get Barnes & Noble, all of that stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. What's the sense, though, from the virus standpoint? Because, again, some teams are having more success testing than others. Is there still a legitimate concern that this season may not get off on time, the new time frame right now?
Yeah, for a second there, I thought you were asking me what the virus thought of.
Yeah. I mean, do you know have you talked to the virus? What's he saying?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to end up being 100 games ahead of the rest of Major League Baseball. So, I mean, look, all these guys, you're kind of hearing different thought processes that you control the things you can control, but I think. From the Braves standpoint, again, when you've got a guy who's a key figure in Freeman not being there, you have Markakis, who's such a big leadership guy for this team, electing not to play. I mean, I think those kind of set the tone for it. I think the guys will play the games they'll play. I mean, Jamie, I mean, guys who play baseball, they control what they can control, and that's the mindset. That's the way they talk about things. I just don't think they can get too caught up in it. I mean, I think the belief is, when you're on the field, and certainly we've seen some issues with testing, we've seen delays in getting those tests back. When the players want to believe that when they're on the field, the league and the team are taking care of them. They take care of themselves when they're not at the field. If they do that, they're going to be in a good position. But, I think right now we've just not seen Major League Baseball 100% live up to that.
David Price, also a major name that has withdrawn from the 2020 season. Do you anticipate more big names in this sport opting out?
I would think so. I mean, more positive cases are inevitable, right? And then it's at what point does someone, like a Mike Trout, who's got a baby on the way and who we've seen, run the bases with a mask on. At what point does he say, this is, I mean, Garrett Cole, obviously going over the Yankees and massive contract, just had a baby the last 2 days. I mean, these are all things at play, I think until the games themselves get going, and we see what it's really like when you're going from city to city and having different groups of people intermingling, to see how this thing spreads or doesn't spread, and how Major League Baseball reacts to that. I think we're just going to have to kind of take that stance and just step back and just see what happens.
What's the coverage policy for anybody who's regularly on the beat, for you, for national guys, in terms of covering? Let's just stick to the Braves, one specific team. How much access, be it at the ballpark in Atlanta or even on the road? Is there any sense of what you're able to do yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. I mean, baseball is so much different than any other sport, just because there's that routineness and that kind of laid backness where you can go into a major league clubhouse and go up and talk to just about any guy you want to. You could talk to every player on the roster if you wanted to during any day of the season. But certainly now with the situation, clubhouses being closed, if you go to a game and sit in a press box, you're not going anywhere other than that press box. So there are no one-on-one interviews. Things are done via Zoom calls. When they're on the road, it's going to be the same thing. So I think a lot of newspapers, websites, TV stations are going to save a lot of money this year, because there's really no reason to send anybody on the road. I mean, everything's going to be done via Zoom calls like this. So it's going to be very different. You're not going to see a lot of exclusive stuff coming out of anyone's reporting this season. So it's unfortunate for the coverage of baseball, getting to know some of those players. I mean, those lesser known guys in the roster are not going to get those opportunities, because you're going to have your Acuñas, your Freemans, guys like that are going to be consistent guys on these calls. I think a lot of these role players just aren't going to get an opportunity to get the coverage they're used to.
Yeah. We talked about this yesterday. Acuña is attempting to become the fourth player in the history of the sport. He would join Trout, Andrew Jones, and A-Rod to be one of four players at 22 years of age or younger. Let me see if I remember this correctly. To hit 80 or 70 home runs and steal 80 bases, or is it the other way around? It's 80.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Is it 70-80 or 80-70?
I think it's 80-70, right?
Yeah.
80-70.
80 homers because he's got 67.
Yeah, there you go. 80 homers and swipe 70 bags, which would mean he'd have to hit 13 home runs in 60 games this year, and he'd have to steal, I think, 17 bases in 60 games this year. Does he do it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was crazy that I saw the individual player over-unders are out, and they've got him at 14.5 home runs and 11.5 stolen bases. I think I'd take the over on both of those. I mean, he had 3 months last year where he stole at least 11 bases, so I think that one happens for sure. And the last one was only 11 because we saw him get shut down at the end of the season to get him ready for the postseason. So I think it happens. One thing I do wonder is there's been this, we've seen him at leadoff, we've seen him thrive at leadoff, but if Freddie Freeman misses any time, do they keep him in leadoff? Because if it's set up as normal and it goes with Acuña, Ozzie Albies, and Marcell Ozuna, who hits? I mean, there's nothing behind Marcelo Zuna of any, that's going to strike fear in anybody. So I think it's going to be interesting if he gets pushed down, if Freeman's not there. But if he's hitting leadoff, I think this guy's going to make the serious noise that we're used to.
If he's not hitting leadoff, if he does switch the lineup around without Freeman, then who goes to the top of the lineup?
Ozzy Albies, I think, is the logical guy there. I mean, we've seen Ender and Ciarte do it, but I think he plays better a little bit further down. I think Ozzy Albies has that game to pull it off as well.
All right. Before we let you go, I mentioned Andrew. Here's just this I'm going to make this a daily plug as to why the hell is Andrew Jones not in the Hall of Fame. Everybody looks at that 254 career batting average, which actually went down at the end of his career. Is why it's at 254. But 10 straight Gold Gloves, 434 career home runs. Do you have a realistic response as to why the dude's not in the Hall of Fame?
I think he gets there via the Veterans Committee. I will tell you this though. I've been watching his kid play. So his kid plays for 643 out of Marietta, which is the same youth program that produced Drew Waters, and he's actually committed to Vanderbilt. Looks exactly like Andrew, just a thin, real kid, just a sweet swing, playing the outfield. So the genes were passed on, but I think ultimately Andrew Jones II is going to end up watching Dad get inducted to the Hall of Fame at some point.
Yeah, I mean, never mind.
This is the soapbox. It's not a soapbox. It's like a mountain that he's on.
I just, between him and look, I get it. I'm a little bit of a homer here. Okay, fine, so be it. But numbers are numbers, and Andrew and Dale and Fred McGriff, there is no reason those dudes shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. None.
Yeah, I think it'll happen. I mean, I think we're getting a little bit more sense of defensive metrics, and I think those are only going to play into Andrew's favor when it comes into the era committees.
I have said this is my opinion only. In my generation, Corey, I have never seen a center fielder better than Andrew Jones. I know the argument's there for Edmonds. I know it's there for Griffey, but I've always said this about Andrew from when I was a kid to even now. He camped under balls that guys had to dive for, and if Andrew had to dive, you didn't have a prayer at getting to it.
You know what I think, if I can't, what I think hurts Andrew a little bit is I don't know that there was maybe one season when he was the best player on the team. And I think that's kind of where you can say things are a little bit different for Andrew Jones, is that he wasn't the absolute best player on his own team, 90% of the time with the pitchers that he had and Chipper Jones. And I think that's just an unfortunate piece of the puzzle for him.
Well, they need to fortunate that unfortunate piece, because that's he was the best I ever saw roam it gap to gap out there in center field wherever he played. All right, anything we missed, Corey? Anything of note you want to make sure you add here?
No, I think you guys are on it. We'll see what happens these next 2 weeks. I think, every day when we hear Brian Snitker talk, we wait to hear whether there's going to be some more oddity to come out of this situation. So he'll talk after today's scrimmage, and hopefully nothing strange is going to hit the Braves beat today.
All right, my lone prediction for the season: Justin Smoke will hit 60 home runs. 60 and 60. He'll be the first player ever and only player ever to go 60 for 60.
All right.
You ready?
Let's do it.
You good for that? I texted Smoke the other day. I said, don't come home unless you hit 60 home runs.
See you in 2025, dude.
Corey, thank you so much, man. You're the best. We really appreciate your time as always, and we'll catch up with you here very soon as we get closer to the season.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. There you go. Corey McCartney. I don't know. I don't personally know anybody that covers baseball better than him. He's just absolutely exceptional. If you're not following him and you haven't ordered your book, do it. Go to at Corey J. McCartney on Twitter.
I mean, that someone's really
both of his books, by the way.
Someone's really good covering a sport when you can throw them any question and there's no hesitation with the answer. I mean, none. It's right there on the tip of his tongue. He's good, man. I've enjoyed talking to him a few times that we've had him on.
Oh, he's the best, man. He is just the best. I'm tweeting right now back to Rafael Esparza, who just tweeted a video of some interstate. I don't know where it is. I don't know. Well, it can't be Nevada because there's green grass and trees. But some truck going down the road with literally there's a Ghostbusters car, the Batmobile, the car from Back to the Future. And I can't see what the other ones are, but all like the superhero cars are on this on the bed of this truck being towed somewhere.
All right, I'm retweeting that for you.
He said, help is on the way. I said, college football's back.
Oh, Scooby-Doo's there.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo. Okay, there you go. Okay.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, good stuff. Good find there, Esparza. He'll join us tomorrow. We'll let him tell us all about these superheroes. Let me squeeze. I need to go find the what this is for Clemson, but according to Circa Sports, if this game is played, which is obviously in Vegas, South Carolina has opened as a 23-point favorite over Coastal Carolina, which isn't not necessarily a shock to me.
No.
But the week one favorites are beginning to trickle out. So actually, here you go. I've just pulled this up, so I'll try to find Clemson here in just a second and get that out to you. But there it is. Wow, holy moly! 29-point favorites are the Tigers over Georgia Tech in week one. Again, if that ball game is played, and the over/under is at 56.5. So basically expecting Clemson not just to blow them out, but to limit them to very few points.
Clemson and the over.
The over the 56.5?
Uh-huh.
Oh, you're saying take both.
I'm saying take
take
Clemson and take the over. Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, the over under I would go over. Yeah, I'd go over 50. No, I don't know that I'd go over 56.5. Clemson doesn't necessarily light up the scoreboard game one every year.
That's true.
Now, it doesn38 mean they won't do it this year. And it doesn't mean that they won't cover the 29 either. But I could also see something like 38 to 7 or something like that. You know what I mean? I might be under that 56.5. I would be more pressed to take Clemson at the 29, minus 29.
So you would take that one?
Yeah, I might stay under that 56.5, me personally. Just knowing their history of season openers, trying to feel things out. You don't have, Jeff Scott was technically a co-coordinator, even though Tony Elliott usually is the primary play caller for Clemson. You have to kind of feel out a couple of the wideouts, even though they're all Jerry Rice and Sterling Sharp and everybody else. I might be under that.
There is a. I'm not going to
over. Oh, by the way, over under in Carolina, Coastal Carolina, 55.5. Give me the under.
Yeah,
give me the under.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have no idea what the offense is going to look like.
Give me the under. So, you want to make some money? Under 55.5.
I'm not going to plug the site because it is it's not Raphael's site, but there are a couple sites popping up odds on college football.
Well, I just mentioned Circa Sports. I don't mind mentioning that.
Okay.
I don't mind mentioning.
Oh,
that.
I'm talking about will it be played type odds.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I'm looking at one right now. Will the FBS season be postponed until spring? Yes is even money. No is minus 140. Will an FBS game be canceled or postponed? Yes is minus 800. So that's basically saying it's absolutely going to happen. First FBS conference to postpone fall football. You got the Pac-12. Well, obviously, I mean, you know what the conferences are. It looks like the ACC would be the favorite as the first to postpone.
I could understand that because of where some of their schools are located. I could understand. You've got a lot of hot spot schools in there.
I'm sorry. Oof. I might be reading this wrong. The ACC is 3-1. The SEC is 5-1. The SEC is not the first to postpone.
No,
I can.
But I would
guarantee that.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I would think not. I don't know. I'm almost of the mindset right now that this will be a collective effort with the Power Five. I don't know that it will be league by league, Darren. These guys talk every day.
Yeah,
we know that. These commissioners talk every single day, and they're now all intertwined because of the schedule setups and things like that. I think this will be a collective effort to do the very best that they can to uniformly adjust college football, if they have to uniformly adjust college football, which is leaning that way.
Yeah. They'll do the best they can, yeah.
They'll do the best they can. All right, it is 1:28 on this Thursday afternoon. Before we run to break, I do want to squeeze in everybody's favorite segment.
Yeah,
because we got Scotty coming up, and we'll squeeze him in for about 15 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes. There's some big news in golf to get to, certainly.
Yeah, but it
is everybody's favorite segment. What day is today on the National Days calendar? There's only one day today. Which I think is how it should be.
It should, but there are days when there's like 6 or 7 days.
Yeah.
Whatever.
But it's a good one. It is National Sugar Cookie Day.
Yeah, those are good.
I'm a sugar cookie fan.
It's one of those like Lay's potato chips. You eat one and it's hard to stop.
Yeah.
You can't just have one.
Speaking of that, by the way, we're big chip fans at my house. We always have like 4 or 5 bags of chips. And just recently, I've just started going old school, just buying the just original Ruffles with the sour cream and onion dip. Or not sour cream and onion dip, French onion dip.
Yeah.
I've just been going old school, man. It's cool.
Look.
Makes you feel good again.
Trust me. Utz Barbecue Ripple.
Have them.
It is the greatest chip ever created.
Yeah.
I have 2 bags of them.
We have them all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Greatest chip ever created. Yeah. Utz Barbecue. They're good. The regular ones. The Ripple. Over the top.
All right. Make original Ruffles great again.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to. They're always great.
All right. Thanks to Patriots Point for presenting our national anthem every day at 1 o'clock. It is the most fantastic museum in the state of South Carolina, the Laffey, the Clamagore, the Vietnam War exhibit, and, of course, headlined by the USS Yorktown, which has been on the waterline, skyline, in Charleston for decades. It is beautiful. It is fantastic. And tomorrow, the Patriots Point, is week 3 of the Holy City Drive-In series.
Yeah, tomorrow is Friday, isn't it?
HolyCityDriveIn.com for this weekend's movie schedule, where you just drive your truck or car or whatever into Patriots Point, back right in, pull out your lawn chair, sit in the truck bed, put up your tent, whatever you want to do. Order food. They have food and bevs there.
Yeah, they ask that you eat their food.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah,
you should eat their food.
That's right.
They're giving you a great family opportunity. So spend your time at Patriots Point one of these weekend nights. I haven't been able to do this yet. It might be hard to with my kids. They need to go to bed. But maybe a date night. Carrie and I can just go over there and have a little tailgate and watch a movie. I think that'd be neat.
Yeah, that's what it's there for.
That's right.
I mean, that's what drive-in movies are made for, right?
That's right. Especially in the 50s. You wrap your arm around.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Carrie and I don't do that. All right. Got to hit a timeout. Scott Glaze joins us next.
DB's Cheesesteaks, the tastiest, juiciest, and now award-winning cheesesteaks in the Low Country. DB's Cheesesteaks delivers, and not just in quality. Download DoorDash, Uber Eats, or your delivery app of choice and have it dropped off at your doorstep. Original chicken, buffalo chicken, even pizza cheesesteaks, not to mention incredible cheeseburgers, massive hot dogs, and dynamite hoagies. It's all there for you and your family. DB's Cheesesteaks in West Ashley. dbscheesesteaks.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
I love them a lot.
And that's just how we do it.
All right, 1:33. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, final segment on this Thursday afternoon, where some sun has peeked through, probably helping to dry up the golf course out in Hollywood, South Carolina. That's the home of Stono Ferry, and that's also kind of probably more of a home than actually home to Scott Glaze. What's up, brother? I can't hear him.
He may not be able to hear us.
Is he whispering?
He just pointed to his ears. You might be on mute.
Oh. We'll have to check technical difficulties, and we'll get it figured out here.
He's probably got the mute button on.
Okay. Workday Charity Open. We're about to talk about that with Scott Glaze, amongst other things here. Some major news with Tiger Woods to get to in just a moment. But they are playing at Muirfield in Dublin, Ohio. And currently right now, Adam Hadwin is in the lead, and he's also in the clubhouse. Shot a 66 today. He's at 6 under par. 5 under par just behind him is a host of guys, including Hideki Matsuyama, Nick Taylor, Louis Oosthuizen, and Zach Johnson.
Can you hear me?
Oh, we can hear you now. Hey, man.
Yep, I got you, but you still can't hear us.
I got nothing.
He's got nothing.
We'll have to get that figured out. We'll get it figured out. At 4 under, Justin Thomas, Pat Perez, Luke List is at 3 under. So is Matt Jones, Matt Kuchar, Shane Lowry, and Hudson Swafford. Also, Brendan Steele, Jason Day, Victor Hovland, Xander Schauffele, Steve Stricker, Jason Duffner, a ton of them are at 3 under par. Rory Sabatini, Seb Straka, Mackenzie Hughes, and Tim Wilkinson. So a bunch there at 3 under, but some names certainly recognizable in the wide world of golf. And there are some big names, and we're going to talk about these big names here in just a minute, that are actually playing in this week's tournament, which maybe was a little bit unexpected to some folks, because next week they're also playing here in Muirfield up in Dublin, Ohio. But Patrick Reed, he's in the tournament. Ian Poulter is in this week's tournament as well. Gary Woodland, he is also in the tournament. Brooks Koepka is playing this week. Jordan Spieth is playing this week. Ricky Fowler is playing this week. So there are some of the bigger names in the sport, maybe the biggest names in the sport, that have elected to go back-to-back up in the great state of Ohio, where it is hot. 92 degrees right now in Dublin. Only a 15% chance of rain today. Going to get up to about 94 degrees over the next couple of hours there. So should be decent conditions to play golf in Dublin, Ohio.
So I'm not quite sure why Scott can't hear us. Unfortunately, I'll throw him under the bus here. It's on his end.
Okay.
But let's see. Yeah, I can hear you. You're trying to talk. Can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
All right, there we go. We're all good. Everything's fine. It all worked out.
Sorry, guys. I should be better at this.
No, it's 2020. What do you expect?
Yeah, exactly.
Phil Mickelson also in the tournament, and he is currently 1 under, just birdied the first hole. So I kind of ran down the leaderboard, Scott. Welcome to the program. Hadwin in the lead at 6 under par. We're going to get back to that here in just a moment, but the breaking news of the day was that I think it was expected news, but it is breaking and it is major because it's Tiger. Tiger will play in the Memorial next week.
Yes, huge news. And sorry great to be here. Before we get to that, I heard your take on sugar cookies. Not a sugar cookie guy over here. So I do not subscribe to Sugar Cookie Day today. But no, huge news for Tiger. Tiger is going to be back, which is great. It's going to be his first start since, I believe, February. And, you know, I'm a huge Tiger fan, of course, and I'm really not going to be looking for too much out of Tiger. I think this is just going to be a nice tune-up for him to get his competitive juices back underneath him before we head into the PGA Championship. He's obviously hunting majors, hunting one more PGA Tour win to pass Sam Snead for the all-time mark, but he's hunting majors, so he's getting his game ready for that. But really, really big news in the biggest event since we returned to golf, and that's going to be the Memorial next week.
Well, it's got to be pretty odd. I mean, I don't remember it. The Memorial next week is being played at the same course that the tournament this week is being played at. That's real rare, isn't it?
Very rare. It's only happened 11 times in the history of the PGA Tour where they've had back-to-back. The last time it was done on the PGA Tour was a long time ago, I believe, back in maybe the 50s or 60s. I can't remember the exact date. However, we did see this in 2014 with the U.S. Open. The USGA had back-to-back U.S. Opens for the men and then the women's U.S. Open at Pinehurst No. 2. So a little bit different, not the same, same group of people playing the same golf course, but they did host that back-to-back. And what they're doing this week at Muirfield Village is they're keeping the greens a little slower this week so that they can access a few more hole locations. so that they can have their traditional spots for the Memorial next week. And they're going to utilize maybe some more forward tees, some different tees, so that the course doesn't get chewed up over 2 weeks of play as opposed to 1 week of play.
Bryson DeChambeau is, I don't think,
strange
in the field this week.
No, he is not.
He's maybe he's got a round of juice to. No, I'm kidding.
Ask Brooks Koepka.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think Koepka was trolling him about that. But
that was a great tweet. I loved that tweet, and I'm not a huge Koepka guy, and I'm still not. But I gotta pay respect where it's due. That was pretty good trolling there from Koepka earlier this week with the Kenny Powers little clip there.
Brooks, for as stoic as he often looks, I think he actually has a decent sense of humor. Bryson, though, caught the national attention last week when he was caught basically, I don't want to say ridiculing, but maybe kind of giving his stern thoughts to a cameraman on the tour. Explain that situation.
Yeah, it's almost like he was finger wagging, and it really, I think it's a terrible take on DeChambeau's part. First of all, to go to his play last week, it really, I would like to take a little bit of credit for picking him to start the week. JB, you weren't around Thursday last week, but at least, a blind squirrel can find an acorn every once in a while. We got that one right. But
nice job.
His game from the previous 3 weeks, it just kind of all culminated last week. It was a pure display of power. He could hit it all over the place. He led the field in strokes gained driving. I talk about strokes gained a lot and how it's a great metric in golf. He led the field strokes gained driving and strokes gained putting. You do that, you're going to be really tough to beat. However, he was caught in, I guess you could say, a compromising position in the bunker. I think it was on Saturday on the 7th hole. He hit a poor shot, kind of slapped at the sand. Was kind of acting like a jerk. It happens. I tell everybody, golf is a 4-letter word. I mean, if you want to hear some choice words and actions come to a golf course, it's frustrating. However, there was a cameraman that caught all of it and had it all on film for PGA Live and for the Golf Channel's coverage and all of that. And after playing the hole, Bryson then went over and had a long talk with the cameraman and kind of berated him for doing that. And then one of the Golf Channel's reporters or writers actually called Bryson afterwards to get a kind of a soundbite, his thoughts on that. And Bryson thought that they should not be filmed in a compromising position like that to protect their brand and protect the PGA Tour's brand. And I disagree with that strongly. I mean, if you want to be a professional athlete, if you want to be on the PGA Tour, if you want to be playing for the millions of dollars that you're playing for, if you want to be who you want to be and what you're doing this for, you got to be that all the time. It's not that a cameraman shouldn't protect you and that you have your brand as one thing in one lens, and then the person who you actually are be different. We do talk about Tiger a lot, but it made me really respect Tiger even more because Tiger's had a camera in his face every single moment he's on a golf course for the past, 25 years?
Yep.
And yeah, we've seen Tiger let some words fly, and we've seen him slam clubs and, and act less gentlemanly than this game is supposed to be, I guess. But that's part of it. I mean, that's part of it. If you want to be this brand, you gotta be that all the time. So I thought that was a really poor take by Bryson. I thought it was really interesting then afterwards, after he won, his Amanda Balionis with CBS there, asked him her first question of, how's it feel to win, whatever the question was. And he then kind of went into whole NASCAR mode and started listing all of his sponsors, and he had to thank the Cobra Puma team and the Orgain team and the this, that, the other. So the guy clearly is very concerned about his brand. Last thing, I guess, about Bryson, there's a writer for CBS Sports. His name's Kyle Porter. He's a really good follow on Twitter if you're into the whole golf Twitter scene there. And he was on a podcast earlier this week, and he said, our human nature, we love the protagonist and antagonist story in movies, books, sports, whatever it is. And we love a villain. And there are three different types of villains. There's a villain who knows he's a villain. There's a villain who knows he's a villain but tries to act like he's not a villain. And there's a villain that has no clue that he is a villain. Well, we've come full circle on the PGA Tour, and we have all three villains. The villain who knows he's a villain is Brooks Koepka. The villain who knows he's a villain and tries to act like he's not a villain is Patrick Reed. And now the villain who has no clue that they're a villain is Bryson DeChambeau. So I think it's nice to have those antagonists there for our protagonist on tour.
Why Brooks Koepka the villain?
I think it's just the way. I don't know. I think it's just the way Brooks carries himself.
Absolutely.
The comments that he's made about not practicing during normal weeks. He only cares about the majors. That's part of the issue that I have with Bryson of you got to be there every week. This job isn't, as a professional golfer, isn't a 4 week a year job. You need to be there week in and week out. And really it's just almost as disrespectful to the PGA Tour to say, I don't really care about the Travelers Championship this week. I'm not really practicing. I'm just kind of here so I don't get fined, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think that's a little bit of the brashness of Brooks, I think, is what makes him a villain. But he owns it. He totally owns it. He is the biggest bulletin board material guy on the PGA Tour. He takes any type of spite and is going to turn that into motivation. As I say that, he's not played well today. Shot 74 today, +2. But then Patrick Reed is a villain just because the guy, there's not much likable about him between the rules infractions that he's tried to cover up and the comments that he's made. And then Bryson is just, I think he's just kind of a quirky guy, and and that's great, be that way. But it's different than maybe the cookie cutter guys that we have that the PGA Tour is littered with.
On Twitter at Scott Glaze, he's our golf pro. He's also yours, and he's definitely the golf pro at Stono Ferry, stonoferrygolf.com, joining us here 1:45 on this Thursday afternoon. So Bryson DeChambeau did set a PGA Tour record last week. He averaged 350.6 yards off the tee, which is the longest by a PGA Tour winner ever, and that is according to the PGA Tour. Now, in saying that capped, I think it was 23 under to win the tournament last week. That capped a string of 6 consecutive top 10 finishes for Bryson DeChambeau with a win at the Rocket Mortgage. He is now, according to Caesars Sportsbook in Vegas, the favorite to win the Masters at 10-1 odds. That is ahead of Rory, who's at 12-1, John Rahm and Brooks at 14-1, JT at 15-1, Dustin Johnson at 17-1, Spieth at 18-1, and a guy named Tiger, who's at 16-1 odds to win this year's Masters. He did win it last year, just in case we need to remind some folks out there. But an interesting note on Bryson DeChambeau is, right, Scott? He's never finished the top 15 in a major. So why is he the favorite?
Great point. And you took the words right out of my mouth. That's what I was just about to say. I think and I'd be interested to see what Rafael has to say tomorrow, because I think you can find right now in the current state of power rankings, I guess you could say, in golf, you can find some really good value with some of those guys with some odds. Bryson's the hot hand right now. But let's not forget, he has not finished inside the top 15 in a major championship. And there is something totally, totally different about being in those last couple groups on a Sunday in a major championship, whether it's the PGA Championship, the U.S. Open, or the Masters, which we have coming up in that order. There is something much different coming down the stretch and holding on and winning a major championship and breaking through in that scenario than the Rocket Mortgage Classic. And no disrespect to the Rocket Mortgage Classic, but that was not the elite field of a major championship. He is not my favorite for the upcoming majors, mainly because he is playing this kind of bomb and gouge type style right now. Hit the ball as far as you can, but you're going to be so close to the green that even if you are in the rough or in trouble, you're going to have a much easier time to get it onto the green. I said he led the field in strokes gained driving and in putting. He was almost dead last in strokes gained in terms of proximity to the hole. So he was not hitting the ball very close to the hole, relatively speaking. Now he's putting great to make up for it. So I've seen clips of TPC Harding Park, which is where the PGA Championship is in August, and they're already growing out the rough to be very thick and very penal, much more like a U.S. Open rather than a typical PGA Championship. So it's going to put an emphasis on driving the ball straight and in the fairway. If you're hitting the ball 360, 70 yards, that's a long time for the ball to get offline, not find the fairway. So if he's not finding the fairways in the PGA Championship and then most definitely in the U.S. Open, I don't think he's got a chance to win and maybe even be in those top 15. Time will tell. But Winged Foot, where we're going to play the U.S. Open in September, is historically one of the most toughest U.S. Open venues, and that's due to the emphasis on driving and the emphasis on hitting greens and being in the right spots on those greens. So he's going to have to show me some more in terms of accuracy and proximity before I'm going to pick him in a major championship. However, when we get to the Masters, the limited amount of rough is going to help him with his distance there. He could potentially overpower that course, but that's in November. So we've got time before then for things to maybe simmer down from what they are now.
When you look at that swing, particularly off the tee that he's using to hit the ball 1,000 yards, there's no way that's sustainable, right? I mean, he is going to tangle up his back worse than Tiger's if he keeps going this way. I mean, am I seeing anything wrong?
To his credit, no, I mean, he has changed his swing. I will give him credit that he has taken this bulking and taking it, I guess, correctly, if there is a way to do it. He has changed his golf swing some. If you notice how when he hits these drives and really goes all out, how his left leg and foot and knee kind of get out of the way, almost kind of like a baseball swing. He's doing that basically to keep his body intact. I mean, he would shred his knee apart if he was swinging that hard and keeping that thing planted in the ground. So he has made some changes. He's made some real changes in getting width in his golf swing. So he's made changes to accommodate for the speed that he's making. However, the golf swing is not a normal movement, and keeping yourself healthy is going to be the biggest thing. Whether it's a lower body injury, upper body injury, I mean, that could derail him. So he is doing it about as good as you could. His trainer is very knowledgeable about also maintaining flexibility. I think that's the biggest caveat to all this is he ever going to get hurt? And how far will he go? I mean, is he going to be hitting it 400 yards in a few months? Like, where's the ceiling? I also do think this is really going to accelerate the USGA putting a cap to equipment and distance, especially maybe at the pro game, at the PGA level. I think they're not going to sit around and let this movement, DeChambeau, and then others that are going to then try to tag along with this, they're not going to let that, break the game of golf, so to speak, to where all of a sudden there's no golf course that can contain anyone from overpowering it.
All right, couple quick ones, and then we'll let you run here, Scotty. Well, one quick one, and then we need to find out about hole number 3 today out at Stono. You were right last week. We'll see how correct you are this week. Adam Hadwin currently in the clubhouse with the lead at 600 at the Workday Charity Open at Muirfield in Dublin. Who's your pick?
My pick this week, he's a past winner at the Memorial. He is also, in the last 10 years, has led in the Memorial in the following stats. Scoring average, he's first. Birdies and eagles per round, first. Strokes gained tee to green, first. Ooh. Strokes gained approach, first. Strokes gained long game, first. And total strokes gained, first. And that's Patrick Cantlay.
Wow.
He is my pick this week. He either just teed off or he's teeing off soon. I think he obviously loves this golf course, plays well at this course, and I think it's going to be a little easier. We're going to see the lower scores this week than we'll see next week, just due to how they're setting the golf course up. But I think with the field that we have this week, not as good as it will be next week, I think Cantlay's going to take advantage. That's my pick. So we'll see if we make it two in a row.
Cantlay even through 2 currently in Dublin. By the way, the Koepka brothers are a combined 11 over par today.
Tough scene there for the Koepka brothers.
Well, Brooks is carrying it all on his back. He's only 2 over, but old Chase is bringing it up the rear today at 9 over. He just
down there with Bubba Watson. Not good days for those guys.
Yeah, Bubba's it might shed a tear today this week if he keeps playing like that. StoneOakFerryGolf.com. That's where you can book a tee time to go play at one of the finest courses we've got in the state of South Carolina. It borders the beautiful Stono River. And find out about the great history of this club. You can get a lesson or 2 or 20 or however many you need from Scott. But today we're going to take a look at hole number 3 as we tour ourselves through the golf course out there. Tell us about number 3.
Yeah, so number 3, we've come off 1 and 2. 1, definitely a difficult starting hole. 2, not a gimme par 3 to start your round. And like I said last week, it's always hard, I think, to have a par 3 really early in the round. You get to number 3, and now you have an opportunity to right the ship, so to speak, to make a par, maybe make a birdie. The third hole is named Kusahatchee. It is 406 yards from the tips. So from the maroon tees, from all the way back, it's going to be 406 yards from our very forward tee. And we have 9 different tees here at Stono Ferry once you factor in combos. So we can accommodate any skill level. The very forward tee is going to be 225 yards. So I was actually looking at a topography map this morning for some other stuff that we're doing out here. There's actually about a 5-yard downhill from the tee box to the bottom of the fairway there, which in the low country is a lot for 250 to 300 yard span. So you're hitting a downhill tee shot, and the whole dog legs to the right. So after your tee shot, the hole turns and goes to the right. So the wind that you'll have on the tee is going to be slightly quartered differently on the second shot. So you do have a pond right, so you have to make sure not to miss the drive too far to the right, and then to the left is going to be out of bounds. There is a magnolia tree right at the corner of the dog leg, so you have to steer kind of towards the left side of the fairway for your best angle into the green. Now, once you're in the fairway, now we're going to come back uphill a few yards to the green. So the green somewhat blind. You can see the flag stick, but it's kind of like it's hovering out there on the green. Can't really fully see its location. There is a pond that guards the green short left, and then left of the green, and then behind to the left of the green. So you got to be careful for that. But for your better players, you're going to be coming in with a short iron or wedge, so you're going to be able to attack this pin to a relatively flat green and a pretty deep green, so you can hit a club or 2 more or less into it depending on the breeze. But when you do come out and play, remember that second shot is just a tad bit uphill. So if you're in between clubs, take the longer one, and then once you're on the green, fairly flat green that you're going to be able to hopefully roll in a birdie putt. Worst case, have a little 2-putt par, and then right the ship and head to number 4.
Really wish you would have given me that advice before that played the last 40 times out there.
You played 40 times. I mean, it's up to you to figure it out by this point.
Scott Glaze, golf pro at Stono Ferry, StonoFerryGolf.com to book your tee time and a lot more. You can find out a bunch about the golf course like you just from Scotty there. You can set up an event out there if you'd like to do so. It is one of the finest courses we've got, former state golf course of the year here in South Carolina, just south of the city in beautiful Hollywood, the real Hollywood.
The real one.
Hollywood, right. South Carolina. On Twitter, at Scott Glaze and at Stono Ferry Golf. Scotty, thank you so much. Have a great weekend, brother.
Yeah, have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy the tournament, and we got the big cat back next week.
Yeah. Can't wait. Looking forward to it with Tiger. Can't wait. Thanks, man. See you.
Yeah, see y'all.
There you go. Scott Glaze joining us from Hollywood, South Carolina. All right, a couple quick parting shots before we get out of here. From our friend Darren Heitner, who was just on our program last week. New affidavit signed by Donald Kress under penalty of perjury says that an agent, Slavko Duric, confirmed money was paid to Zion Williamson's family in 2018 in exchange for Zion's promise to sign with Duric as soon as he left Duke for the NBA. So we'll keep our eyes on that today.
And not just money, $400,000 worth of money.
Yeah. A lot of money. So we got to keep our eyes on that for updates, and so we can kind of wind our way through what in the world is going to happen in the future with with Zion. Also, Brett McMurphy says Oklahoma tested 89 football players. None tested positive.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley held him out for a lot longer than everybody else. Didn't want to bring him back, so good job, Lincoln.
And we'll end it with this one. Good for Barrett Salee calling out the NFL here. Jeez, I'm telling you, some stuff is just ridiculous. The NFL will be forbidden from post-game interactions within 6 feet of each other, and jersey exchanges between players will be prohibited in 2020. Barrett Salee says, and I agree with him. Oh, so they can tackle, they can be in confined spaces in practice and in games, go in their locker rooms together, but cannot exchange a jersey. Got it. Okay.
Not like you're touching the jersey when you tackle them.
We're on the road to freedom from COVID-19. Oh, my gosh. A jam-packed show. Thanks to Scott, thanks to Corey, and thanks to David for joining us today. And we had a lot to get to, and I think we got to most all of it. Tomorrow, Raphael, Michael Flint, position preview for South Carolina football, and much, much more. Thanks to Darren, as always, for his very hard work in putting this show together.
Thank you, man.
Have a thirsty Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow on Friday.